You're traveling through the unknown, a journey beyond the corners of reality, where the shadows whisper and the chill runs deep. Welcome to the dimension where your deepest fears are given form. This is the Midnight Mystery.
So last summer, I was on this road trip, just cruising along with no real destination in mind. The sun was starting to dip below the horizon, and I realized I needed to find a place to crash for the night before it got too dark to see the road. That's when I saw it. This rundown motel nestled off the side of the highway, its neon sign flickering like a dying firefly. Now, I'm no stranger to staying in dodgy places, but this one looked like it hadn't seen a fresh coat of paint since the 70s. I hesitated for a moment, considering whether I should keep driving and find something nicer. But then I remembered how tired I was. My eyelids were practically glued shut from hours of staring at the road. So, I decided to take my chances and pulled into the gravel parking lot. As I stepped out of the car, I was hit with a blast of desert heat, the kind that makes you feel like you're walking through a sauna. The air was thick with the scent of dust and gasoline, and I could hear the distant hum of cicadas in the bushes. I made my way to the lobby, pushing open the creaky door with a rusty squeal. Inside, it was like stepping into a time capsule from the 80s. Faded wallpaper, cracked linoleum floors, the works. And the smell. It was like a mix of old cigarettes and industrial-strength air freshener. The guy behind the front desk barely glanced up as I approached, his eyes glued to the TV playing some infomercial for miracle weight loss pills. Without looking away, he slid a room key across the counter and grunted something that might have been, "Enjoy your stay." I took the key and headed down the dimly lit hallway to my room. The carpet squelched under my shoes with every step, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. But I chalked it up to tiredness and pushed open the door to my room. Inside, it was nothing fancy. Just your typical motel room with a bed that sagged in the middle, and a bathroom that looked like it hadn't been cleaned since the Nixon administration. But at that moment, it might as well have been the penthouse suite at the plaza. All I cared about was crashing out and catching some Z's. And let me tell you, I was out like a light the second my head hit the pillow. All right, picture this. I'm out like a light, dead to the world after a long day of driving. But then, out of nowhere, I'm rudely awakened by this god-awful scratching noise. I mean, it was like nails on a chalkboard, but 100 times worse. At first, I tried to brush it off, thinking it was just the old building settling or some critters having a party in the walls. But as the scratching got louder and more persistent, I couldn't deny it any longer. Something was seriously wrong. So there I am, tossing and turning, trying to drown out the noise with my pillow, but it's like the scratching is drilling into my skull. I couldn't take it anymore. With a groan of frustration, I fumble around for my phone and switch on the flashlight, ready to investigate. Now, shining a bright light in the middle of the night when you're half asleep and freaked out? Not the smartest move, but hey, I was desperate for answers. I start scouring the room, shining my flashlight into every nook and cranny, trying to pinpoint the source of that infernal noise. I check under the bed. Nothing. In the closet, nada. Behind the curtains, zilch. Just when I'm about to give up, I hear it again. Faint, but unmistakable, coming from the far corner of the room. My heart skips a beat and I slowly make my way over, flashlight trembling in my hand. I kneel down and shine the light along the baseboard, and that's when I see it. A tiny gap between the wall and the floorboard, and in that gap, eyes. Dozens of them, staring back at me from the shadows. I'm talking full-on horror movie stuff here. People crammed into the space between the walls, their faces twisted in silent agony as they stare out at me with empty eyes. Now let me tell you, I didn't waste any time. I bolted out of there faster than a bat out of hell. But as soon as I was safely outside, I did what any sane person would do. I called the cops. I told them everything, from the scratching noises to the people in the walls. I don't know if they believed me or not, but they said they'd send someone out to check it out. But here's the thing, I haven't heard anything since. No news reports, no updates from the police. It's like the whole thing never happened. Alright, so after that whole ordeal at the creepy motel, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. I mean, finding people living in the walls, that's the kind of thing that sticks with you, you know? I waited around for days, hoping to hear something from the cops, some kind of explanation or closure. But as the days turned into weeks, it became pretty clear that they weren't going to give me any answers. Typical, right? But I'm not the kind of person to just sit around and wait for things to happen. No, sir. I decided to take matters into my own hands. So, armed with nothing but my laptop and a burning curiosity, I dove headfirst into the depths of the internet, determined to uncover the truth. I scoured news articles, police reports, anything I could get my hands on that might shed some light on what had happened at that motel. But no matter how hard I looked, I kept hitting dead ends. It was like the whole thing had been wiped off the face of the earth. But then, just when I was about to throw in the towel, I stumbled upon something. A forum post from someone claiming to have stayed at the same motel and experienced the same weird noises. Bingo. I reached out to them hoping they might have some answers. And to my surprise, they did. According to them, the motel had a seriously messed up history, like horror movie levels of messed up. Apparently, the owner of the motel was involved in all sorts of shady business dealings, using the place as a front for all kinds of illegal activities. And those people living in the walls? They were his victims, trapped and forgotten, their screams drowned out by the noise of the highway outside. It was a lot to take in, let me tell you. But it also made sense. The scratching noises, the feeling of being watched, it all fit together like pieces of a messed up puzzle. But even with some answers finally in hand, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that settled over me that night. I mean, who knows what else was going on at that motel? And what if there were other motels out there with similar dark secrets? I may never know the full extent of what happened at that place, but one thing's for sure, it's a night I'll never forget. And as for staying in sketchy motels? Yeah, I think I'll pass from now on.
This happened just a couple of months ago. It's one of those chilly autumn nights where the air feels crisp and the leaves crunch under your feet. I had just left my friend's place after hanging out for a while, and now I was driving down this deserted road. The only sound being the hum of my car's engine and the occasional rustle of leaves in the wind. I was lost in my thoughts, just enjoying the solitude and the freedom of the open road. But then, out of nowhere, something caught my eye. A figure standing by the side of the road. At first I thought it was just a trick of the light, you know? Like maybe my eyes were playing tricks on me because of the shadows or something. But as I got closer, I realized it was definitely a person. A woman, to be exact. Now, let me tell you, it's weird enough to see someone standing alone on a deserted road in the middle of the night. But what really gave me chills was the way she was just standing there, completely still, like she was waiting for something. I couldn't help but slow down. My curiosity piqued. I mean, what was she doing out here all alone at this hour? Was she in trouble? Did she need help? As I got closer, I could make out more details. She was wearing this long white dress that seemed to glow in the moonlight, and her hair was blowing in the breeze. It was like something out of a movie, surreal and eerie all at once. Now, I'm not usually one to get spooked easily, but I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something off about her, something not quite right. It was like this weird sense of unease settling in the pit of my stomach. I debated for a moment whether I should stop and see if she needed any help, but then something made me hesitate. Call it intuition or whatever you want, but something just didn't feel right about the whole situation. But curiosity got the better of me, and before I knew it, I was rolling down the window and calling out to her, asking if she needed any help. But she didn't respond. She just stood there, staring off into the distance with this blank expression on her face. It sent shivers down my spine. So there I am, standing on the side of the road, feeling the weight of confusion and curiosity bearing down on me. The woman in the white dress, she's just standing there, staring off into the distance with this blank expression on her face. It's enough to give you the chills, you know? I call out to her, but she doesn't respond. She just keeps staring, like she's in a trance or something. And then, without a word, she starts walking. Not towards me, but into the nearby forest. Now, I don't know about you, but seeing someone wander off into the woods in the middle of the night, that's not exactly normal behavior. I mean, what was she doing out there all alone? I debate for a moment whether I should follow her, but something tells me that's not the best idea. I mean, who knows what could be lurking in those woods? I watch as she disappears into the darkness of the trees, her white dress glowing faintly in the moonlight. It's like something out of a horror movie, and I can feel the hairs on the back of my neck standing on end. But then, I remember that feeling in the pit of my stomach, That sense that there's something I need to do, something I can't quite put my finger on. So instead of following her, I reach for my phone and dial 911. The dispatcher picks up after a few rings, and I quickly explain the situation to them, trying my best to sound calm and collected, even though my heart is racing a mile a minute. I tell them about the woman in the white dress, about how she just appeared out of nowhere and started walking into the forest. They assure me that they'll send someone out to check it out, but I can't shake the feeling of unease that settles over me. I mean, what if something happens to her out there? What if she's in trouble? I watch as the flashing lights of the police car appear in the distance, relief washing over me like a tidal wave. Maybe now we'll finally get some answers, I think to myself. But deep down, I know that this is just the beginning of a journey into the unknown, a journey that will take me to places I never could have imagined. As I wait for the police to arrive, I can't help but wonder about the woman in the white dress. Who was she? What was she doing out here all alone in the middle of the night? And most importantly, where did she go? So after I called the cops, I waited there on the side of the road, feeling all jittery and unsure. I mean, who knew what they'd find out there in the woods, right? It felt like ages, but eventually I spotted the flashing lights of the police car rolling up. I dashed over to them, spilling out everything I'd seen to the officers. You know me, I can be quite the chatterbox when I'm nervous. I told them all about the woman in the white dress, how she just appeared out of nowhere and strolled off into the woods like she was taking a leisurely midnight stroll. But when they went to check it out, nada. Not a single trace. It was like she pulled a Houdini, vanishing into thin air without leaving so much as a footprint behind. The cops did their whole shebang, searched the place, combed through the trees, but they came up empty-handed. I couldn't help but feel a bit freaked out, watching them scour the area. I mean, how could someone just disappear like that? It's straight up spooky. Then, a few days later, I catch wind of this news report about a missing woman who looked exactly like the lady I saw on the side of the road. Talk about goosebumps. I mean, what if I was the last person to see her before she vanished into thin air? It's got me feeling all kinds of uneasy, you know? Like, what really went down out there in those woods? Was she okay, or was she gone? I called the police again about it, but they told me the exact same thing again. That they searched that forest and couldn't find any traces of her within the forest. It's like she just vanished. I still think about that night, wondering if I could have helped her, if there was anything I could have done. If I followed her into those woods, something would have happened to me too, you know? I hope that they find her one day.
You know, I've always prided myself on being the practical type, especially when it comes to my job. Working the night shift at the hospital, you see a lot of things that might make the average person's skin crawl, but I've always taken it in stride. That's part of the job, after all. But there was this one night, right around Christmas, that really tested my resolve. It was unusually quiet, you know, the way small towns get when it's snowing. The whole world seemed to be asleep, blanketed under a thick layer of snow. There's something about that kind of silence, especially in the middle of the night, that makes you feel like you're the only person left in the world. I was making my rounds in the old wing of the hospital, which, if you believe the rumors, is supposed to be haunted. Now, I've never been one to believe in ghost stories. I've always thought there's a rational explanation for everything. But that night, as I was walking past room 4113, I couldn't shake this eerie feeling. The room had been empty for weeks because of some renovations, so it caught me off guard when I heard what sounded like whispers coming from inside. My first thought was that maybe someone had accidentally been assigned to the room, or perhaps it was just the wind. Still, I couldn't just ignore it. As I stood there, outside the door debating whether to go in, the whispers seemed to grow louder, almost as if they were calling out to me. It was the strangest thing, feeling both drawn to and terrified of what I might find. I remember thinking, this is silly. You're a grown woman, a nurse. There's nothing in there that you can't handle. So, I pushed the door open, half expecting to find someone playing a prank or a patient who had wandered in. But the room was empty, bathed in this eerie moonlight that cast long shadows across the floor. It was so quiet, I could hear my own heartbeat. I was about to turn back, chalk it up to my imagination running wild when I saw her. And there she was, standing by the window, her back to me. She was wearing this old-fashioned gown, like something out of a historical drama, you know? For a split second, I thought I had stumbled into the wrong room, or maybe gone back in time. It was surreal, seeing someone so out of place, yet there she was, clear as day. I called out to her, "Ma'am, can I help you?" But she didn't respond, didn't even move. It was like I wasn't even there. My mind was racing, trying to figure out what was going on. Was she a patient who had slipped away? But how did she get into a locked, empty room? And that dress? It didn't make any sense. Curiosity got the better of me, and I stepped into the room, the air somehow feeling colder. I approached her slowly, half expecting her to turn around and laugh at my bewildered face. But she just stood there, silent, staring out into the snow. It was when I reached out to touch her shoulder, to make sure she was real, that things took a turn for the downright bizarre. My hand, it went right through her. Like, there was nothing there but air. I stumbled back, my heart racing like a freight train. I blinked, thinking my eyes were playing tricks on me. But when I looked again, she was gone, just vanished into thin air. I stood there in the middle of the room, trying to make sense of what just happened. My rational mind was at war with what my eyes had just seen. Ghosts didn't exist, right? There had to be an explanation. But how do you explain someone disappearing right in front of you? Shaken, I left the room, closing the door behind me like it would lock away what I had just experienced. The rest of my shift felt like a blur. I kept going over it in my head, trying to find a logical explanation. But how do you rationalize the irrational? So there I was, walking out of room 4113, feeling like I'd just stepped out of a Twilight Zone episode. I made my way back to the nurse's station, half expecting Rod Serling to pop out and give a closing monologue. But of course, it was just me and the usual night shift silence. I had to tell someone about what happened, if only to make sure I wasn't losing my mind. So, I found one of my coworkers during a break and spilled the whole story. I expected disbelief, maybe a laugh or two, but instead she went pale. "You've seen her too," she whispered, like we were sharing some secret. Turns out there's a legend about room 413. Decades ago, a young woman died there under mysterious circumstances, and people say she never really left. Hearing that sent a chill down my spine, not gonna lie. But at the same time, it was almost comforting. Like, maybe I hadn't imagined the whole thing. My coworker and I ended up swapping ghost stories for the rest of the break, laughing about how we're supposed to be the rational, science-believing types. Yet here we were, talking about hauntings like it was just another part of the job. I went home that morning with the sun coming up, the world looking a little different, a little more mysterious. I kept thinking about the woman in room 413, about all the things we don't understand, and maybe aren't meant to. And you know what? I'm okay with that. The world's a lot more interesting with a bit of mystery in it. So yeah, that's my ghost story. Not something I ever thought I'd have, but I guess life likes to throw you curveballs. Or, you know, ghostly apparitions in empty hospital rooms. Same difference, right? That's a wrap for today on the Midnight Mystery. Hope you guys had as much fun as we did. If you liked what you saw, hit that subscribe button and give us a thumbs up. Oh, and don't be shy. Drop a comment below with your thoughts or any cool mystery ideas you want us to check out. Until next time, we'll see you in the next Midnight Mystery.